If
out here in just a minute.
if I could ask you,
It's like in the moments right here. It's just all, Hey.
if I could ask you please to take your seats.
That away? That away. Okay.
Nice to meet you, Coach.
Thank you. Well, it is wonderful to see so many of you join us this afternoon to recognize Woody Williams in Gold Star families and sacrifice and service in this country and how important it is for each and every one of us. So thank you for being here with us today. Before we move forward, and we're going to move forward into the program because the person you want to hear from is Woody, and I'm sure you want an opportunity to ask him some questions and explore his experiences and what a remarkable life he has lived. If you would do me the favor, we want to recognize a few individuals here. Will any Gold Star family members and relatives that have lost a loved one for our freedom in the armed services please stand? Any Gold Star family members? Let me ask that all military veterans in our audience, if you could please stand so we could recognize you. And if we have any individuals that are currently on active duty or soon to be on active duty, I think we have some students here with us today as well. If you haven't already stood, if you could stand so we could acknowledge and thank you for your service to this country. I'm going to ask that some representatives and members of the VFW lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to turn this part of the program over.
Everyone, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a few other individuals I want to make sure you're aware that took time on a Saturday to be with us at this important event. I wanted to recognize and thank Mayor Jim Strickland. Jim? I'd like to recognize and thank Rear Admiral Nowakowski from the Navy Recruiting Command. Admiral, thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank and recognize Captain Matt Bourne from the Navy Recruiting Command as well. Is Captain Bourne still here? And I believe that Patrick Rice, the Assistant Commissioner from the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services, is with us. Patrick, can we recognize you? I'm going to turn things over to Cindy Tatum, who is the National President for the American Gold Star Mothers, and I believe we have Cindy with us by video.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cindy Tatum. I am the National President of American Gold Star Mothers, Inc. I am sorry that I can't be with you in person this afternoon. AGSM is currently in the middle of our annual national business meeting across town. It is an honor to be asked to share the stage with Mr. Hershel Woody Williams, World War II Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. As a Marine mom, I would like to say to Woody and other Marines in the room, Semper Fi. American Gold Star Mothers, Inc. is an organization founded by Grace Darling Seibold in 1928. We are the oldest Gold Star organization in the United States and the third oldest Veterans Service organization. George Vaughn Seibold was one of 3 children born to Grace Darling. George began to plan for a military career before the United States entered World War I, and in 1916 he attended officers' training camp in Plattsburgh, New York. In 1917, he was called to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, where George volunteered for the Aviation Corps. He received training near Toronto, Canada, and early in 1918, George received his overseas orders, and in July of 1918, he was assigned to the U.S. 148th Pursuit Squadron under British direction. George wrote to his wife and his family regularly. His mother started doing community service work, volunteering at the local military hospitals. When George's letters stopped coming, Grace continued to visit hospitalized veterans in the Washington, D.C. area, clinging to the hope that her son might have been injured and returned to the United States without identification. On October the 11th, 1918, George's wife received a box marked effects of deceased officer, First Lieutenant George Vaughn Seibold. The wait was finally over. Grace, realizing that self-contained grief is self-destructive, devoted her time and efforts to volunteering in the hospitals and extending the hand of friendship to other mothers whose sons had lost their lives in military service. In 1928, Grace organized a group of 25 of these special mothers with the purpose of comforting one another and giving care to the hospitalized veterans confined to hospitals far from home. It is that mission of service that we continue today, finding strength in the fellowship of other Gold Star mothers who strive to keep the memory of our sons and daughters alive by working to help veterans, those currently serving in the military, their families, and our communities. Through service, we find healing. On December the 24th, 2007, my son, Corporal Daniel Lee Tatum, United States Marine Corps, died of injuries sustained in a motor vehicle train collision in Oceanside, California. Daniel had served 2 tours in Iraq. He was 22 years old. Our knock on the door came on Christmas morning. I struggled for 2 years to find a way to bring remembrance to the life of service my son had started and to healing my broken heart. In 2009, I joined American Gold Star Mothers and started the process of honoring the memory of my son and healing my broken heart. In 2019, as National Second Vice President of AGSM, I had to begin planning for the 2021 National Convention. 10 years ago, the AGSM National Convention was held in Nashville. Members started to ask me whether or not the convention was going to be in Nashville again. Because I'm a West Tennessee gal, I said, no, we need to bring our Gold Star moms and family members to Memphis. to share the blues, barbecue, and of course, Elvis. 3 months ago, I was talking to members of a coalition consisting of Gold Star organizations and mentioned that we plan to hold our convention live this year in Memphis and that we planned a national service project for veterans at the Memphis VA hospital. Chad Graham, Woody's grandson, told me he had a connection in Memphis that he knew would want to help. From that chance introduction to Mr. John Santee, we find ourselves in this meeting with all of you today, talking about a cause that is so much greater than any of us, an opportunity to perpetuate the noble principles for which our children fought and died, and to educate people about the true cost of freedom and liberty. I would like to leave you with a short video clip about American Gold Star Mothers, Inc. Thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.
American Gold Star Mothers is the nation's first and oldest Gold Star organization. When the United States entered World War I, George Vaughn Siebold volunteered. With her son at war, Grace Darling Siebold began performing community service by visiting returning servicemen in hospitals in Washington, D.C. On October 11, 1918, the Siebold family received the news: George was gone. Through her grief, Grace organized a group of mothers who had suffered the same loss, with the purpose of not only comforting each other, but giving loving care to veterans confined in hospitals far from home. The organization was named after the gold star that families hung in their windows in honor of their fallen hero. On June 4, 1928, 25 mothers met in Washington, D.C. to establish the national organization, American Gold Star Mothers. The success of our organization continues because of the bond of mutual love, sympathy, and support of the loyal, capable, and patriotic mothers who share their grief and their pride and have channeled their time, efforts, and gifts to lessening the pain of others. The endeavors that American Gold Star Mothers undertakes helps reassure our service members that we truly do recognize and appreciate the sacrifices made by the men and women who serve in our military and their families. As part of our mission, our members have pledged to honor and preserve the memory of our children through service to the military community and to remind them that we are a grateful nation.
Mike, you look a little younger in that picture. I'm going to ask Mike Longo to come up, and he is going to introduce a video about the Battle of Iwo Jima, and then he is going to introduce Woody, and Chad and I will then join Woody for a conversation about his life and his experiences.
Good afternoon. I'm President and CEO of Hibbett, Inc. More importantly, a native Memphian, a proud native Memphian, and also a former Army officer in the infantry. It looks like someone's been busy finding pictures of me, so thank you for that. That's the epitome of a young, dumb infantry second lieutenant right there. So if you want to know what that looks like, it's right there. So, all right, so it's my distinct honor to have a part in welcoming Woody Williams to our fair city. Before we welcome Woody, as was mentioned, I'd like to give some background on the Medal of Honor, and then we're going to also play a specific video clip of the 4 hours on Iwo Jima that earned Corporal Woody Williams, then 21 years old, the Medal of Honor. So again, a couple words on the Medal of Honor. It's the United States' highest award for military valor in action, and while it is over 150 years old, since its inception, the meaning behind the medal has never tarnished. Etched within are the very values that each recipient displayed in the moments that mattered the most. And those are bravery, courage, sacrifice, and integrity. There have been only 3,508 recipients of the Medal of Honor, and almost half of those occurred during the Civil War. There were only 472 awarded during World War II. Now, mind you, that's a global battle that engulfed nearly the entire population of the world. Only 472, and one of those is here today. And in my lifetime, while I'm relatively old, there have only been 298 Medals of Honor awarded. That makes for very rarefied air. And in my over decade of service, I never met a Medal of Honor winner until today. So that should give you some perspective on it. And additionally, there are only 67 Medal of Honor recipients still alive today. To further put it into perspective, it's a custom of the uniformed services to render salutes to recipients of the Medal of Honor as a matter of respect. That says something, and that includes the President of the United States as a Commander-in-Chief. So no matter your rank, you render a salute to a Medal of Honor winner. So the Medal of Honor is an award presented only to the deserving. The medal tells a story of its own. And to better tell that story of Woody Williams, we'd like to play this short video.
There are moments in history so monumental, they become frozen in time. Yet, as with many of history's great moments, the flag raising on Mount Suribachi, victory on Iwo Jima, victory in the Second World War, proved possible only through the efforts and sacrifices of thousands. February 19, 1945, 0900 hours. The first of 70,000 Marines hit the black sand shores of the Pacific island of Iwo Jima. They are met with silence, the 22,000 Japanese defenders offering no resistance. Hope rose among the Marines that the massive pre-invasion bombing campaign had knocked out the island's defenses. Silence was soon shattered by a hailstorm of bullets as the Japanese defenders executed their trap, waiting until the beaches were full of men and equipment before unleashing a devastating barrage. Across the landing beaches, devoid of cover, men were cut down by fire from entrenched Japanese positions throughout the island and atop Mount Suribachi. Iwo Jima was becoming a bloodbath. Landing on the island with the 3rd Division was a young Marine from West Virginia, Hershel Williams, known to friends as Woody. A veteran of Guam, Woody Williams had been trained in demolition and in the use of flamethrowers, valuable skills against a heavily dug-in enemy. By February 23rd, fighting for every inch, the Marines were making progress. With Suribachi surrounded, a patrol was sent to scale the summit, ordered to secure the mountain and, if the opportunity presented, raise the Stars and Stripes. Not far from the mountain base, several American tanks advanced slowly through the black volcanic sands. Suddenly, they hit a network of reinforced concrete pillboxes and buried mines. They were trapped in the kill zone. Behind the tanks was the young Marine Corporal Woody Williams. Knowing his comrades were now an easy target, he ran toward the enemy positions, armed only with his 70-pound flamethrower. With limited cover from 4 Marine riflemen, Williams fought his way through, blasting pillbox after pillbox with his flamethrower. He climbed atop one pillbox, firing into the bunker below. Then again when charged by a group of enemy soldiers attacking with bayonets. Marines watched in awe as the young West Virginian who was once turned away from the military for being too short took complete control of the battlefield. He was one man, in one moment, changing the course of action during one of the toughest battles of the war. 4 hours later, the enemy guns fell silent, thanks to the extraordinary heroism of Corporal Woody Williams. During his epic moment, he had missed another epic moment, as Mount Suribachi was secured and the flag raised to the cheers of Marines across Iwo Jima. Several months later, the heroism of Woody Williams was recognized when President Harry S. Truman welcomed him to the White House, where he was presented with the Medal of Honor. 27 men received the Medal of Honor for valor on Iwo Jima, the only battle where American casualties exceeded those of the Japanese. Today, only Williams survives, the last living symbol of American valor displayed long ago on a small Pacific island covered in black sand and ash. For 70 years, Woody Williams has worn America's highest military award in honor of those Marines who on February 23, 1945, gave their lives to protect his. His moment of valor represents the stories of thousands of individual Americans who in their own moments sacrificed everything for a cause larger than themselves.
Well, in today's society, we like to, it seems, label a lot of things and a lot of people as a shorthand way of getting to a simplified way of thinking. The term hero is thrown about very carelessly. Today, I'm about to introduce somebody who is the epitome of hero, and I can think of no better label for this man. So if you will join me in welcoming a hero, Woody Williams, to the stage. Joining Woody on stage is his grandson, Chad Graham, who's the president and CEO of the Woody Williams Foundation. And so I'll turn it over to you now.
Well, Woody, again, we are thrilled to have you with us in Memphis and in taking time to be with us and share your experiences with us. I think maybe a good starting point would be, we were talking a little bit about lunch, about your effort to get into the military and that experience, and it was not a simple one for you. And so I would appreciate if you could share with those with us today that story.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And thank all of you for giving your time and being here this afternoon. We're grateful. As a 17-year-old, Pearl Harbor had already happened. And at the time of Pearl Harbor, I was in what was known as the Civilian Conservation Corps that had been started in the 30s to give young men some opportunity to go into a group of other young men, maybe learn a trade and get some work and a little bit of pay. And just in West Virginia alone, we had 29 of these CCC camps, and they made parks and built bridges and buildings and all kinds of construction kinds of stuff. And I joined because a brother had previously joined, brother next to me, and he was stationed in West Virginia. And occasionally he would thumb home on the weekend. He was about 60 miles away, and he'd thumb home on Friday and Friday night, be home on Saturday, and thumb back on Sunday. And he had a little bit of money. I didn't have any. So I thought, when I got to be 16, I'm going to do what he did. So I did. But they sent me all the way to Montana. I thought, I'll never get home again. I'm lost forever. But that's where I was when Pearl Harbor was bombed. We knew nothing about Pearl Harbor. We'd never heard of it. I didn't even know we had a Pacific Ocean at that time. But they offered us the opportunity that if we wanted to go into the Army, since these bases were all run by Army personnel, and we were over 18, we could go enlist and leave. If you're under 18, then you had to have parent consent. I knew my mother was not going to agree to let me go. So I came home and tried to join the Marine Corps. The only reason I was joining the Marine Corps actually was because of the uniform. But my main purpose really was to protect my country and my freedom. I never knew at that point that I would be shipped to the South Pacific. I never knew at that point that I would be in a war, that I would have to take lives. I didn't know that. And I didn't know that until I got into boot camp. And two of the individuals that were training me to be a Marine had already been in combat. And they brought them back so they could teach we who are just coming in something about what war is really like. And then, of course, we shipped overseas. But my experience of trying to get into the Marine Corps, when I finally got home and I was 17 years old yet, I wanted Mom to sign a paper, and Mom said no. My father was already deceased, and I had to wait until I was 18. So 1 month after my 18th birthday, I went to the Marine recruiter, told him I wanted to go. And he looked at me and he said, I can't take you. I was a pretty good specimen of a farm boy at that time. I hadn't even had muscles. And I said, why? And he said, you're too short. Because they had a height requirement and I didn't meet it. So I couldn't go. Later on, they removed that height requirement. He came and looked me up, as he did many others, and said, now, do you want to go? And I said, yes. So he said, well, now I can take you, even though the height requirement has been removed. So I'm filling out this paper to let the government know who's to get my $10,000 life insurance in case I don't make it. And there was one block on there that had the word religion at the top of the block. I didn't have any. I'd never been to church in my life. We didn't even have a church in the community. So I didn't know what to put in there. And I'm standing behind a little short Italian boy. He was even shorter than me. And I look over his shoulder on his paper, and he's got the letter C in there. I thought, well, that's what goes in there. So I put the letter C in there. I became a Catholic right then.
Well, Woody, I think the critical thing is, did you stay a Catholic? I think that you had shared at lunch a little bit about, before you transitioned in the military, that you had taken a position as a cab driver, and that one of the things tragically that you became obligated to do was to serve families notices of the loss of their loved one. And I would appreciate if you could share a little bit about that with everyone.
My pleasure. I was working in a steel mill, really, when I was 16 years old. Was supposed to be 18, but they didn't make any difference. As long as you worked, they kept you. But I'd resigned that job to come home, join the Marine Corps. And after the height requirement was taken down to where I was eligible, I enlisted. But the Marine Corps was getting so many people coming in that they couldn't take them immediately. I thought I could just walk in and say, I want to go to the Marine Corps, and they'd ship me off. But we had a waiting period of about 3 months at that time, because we only had 2 training bases in the country, Paris Island and San Diego, and they could only handle so many people. So I had to wait, and I already resigned my job, didn't have any money, and a friend of mine, we'd gone to school together for 8 years, and I called Vic, and I said, Vic, I need something to do to earn some money. And he said, well, we need cab drivers. He said, they are resigning so fast going into the military, we can't keep cab drivers to work the community. And he said, I know you're not old enough. I was only 19. He said, I know you're not old enough. You have to be 21 to drive a public conveyance. He said, just give me a few days. A few days later, he handed me a driver's license. Now I'm 21 years old. I don't know where he got it or how he got it, and I didn't question it. So I started driving cab. And I was driving from 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning, 12-hour shifts. And the War Department at that time, the way they notified the loved ones that had lost somebody in the armed forces was they would send out in the afternoon from Washington to the Western Union offices on what was known in those days as a ticker tape. Mention that to some 16-year-old boy today, and he has no idea what that is. But it was a wee little tape that came in, and they would take it off of the machine and put it on a telegraph or telegram sheet. The War Department had furnished them with envelopes with the War Department return address, so they would know it came from the War Department rather than Western Union. They'd put that in an envelope, then they'd call the cab office and say, we've got a telegram to be delivered to so-and-so. Then they would call the cab driver, who had a cab stand over in town, and we had a phone up on a pole. We'd jump out of the cab and go grab the phone and answer it, and they'd say, got a telegram at the Western Union office to be delivered. So we would go get it and deliver it to the families. And these were the death notices of those that had been lost. And as for a 19-year-old boy, it was traumatic. So many emotional reactions because the families in the community, we were in a small community, and there had been enough these envelopes delivered in town that most people knew what that envelope was going to say. And the minute you opened the door and handed them the envelope, you would get, of course, a very emotional reaction because they knew they had just lost a loved one. For a 19-year-old boy, it was very traumatic because in my culture, in my age, we could never hug another lady except mom. We couldn't even hug our own sisters. That just was not done. And I didn't know how to react to those things. They were so emotional because here's a mom that now is being told her son is not coming home. So that left an impact on my mind that never did go away. And yet, working with the Veterans Administration, I dealt with a tremendous number of surviving families that had lost loved ones during World War II. I started working just after World War II with the VA, and those folks had to come to the VA to receive their benefits, their life insurance and burial benefits, because the military in those days dealt only with the immediate family, and once they delivered the notice, they had no other relationship with that family. And they had to come to the VA to receive their benefits. So I made it a practice, I ran an office, and I made it a practice that every surviving family, I personally want to talk to them. Because of that previous experience that I'd had, made me a little bit more prepared to deal with them than somebody who had never had that experience. So that continued to occupy my mind. And we had never paid any respect to anyone that had lost a loved one except Gold Star Mother. That was the only term that I'd ever heard. Nobody had ever said to me, Gold Star Dad or Gold Star Widow. It was just Gold Star Mother. And of course, naturally, we were closer to Mother than any other person in the family, quite naturally. But eventually, we decided we have to do something to pay respect to all the relatives, all the relationships to that family, because every one of them grieved the loss. And that's how we got started to do these memorials around over the country. And it's the communities that are doing it. Folks like you live in a community. You know you've got Gold Star families living in that community. They don't even know each other. They've never met. There's no association between them and the rest of the family or the rest of those in the community. Now there are. And now they have something that represents their loved one. So that loved one will never be forgotten.
Woody, we talked a little bit about your experience on Iwo Jima and then about the notification of that you would receive. And I don't believe you knew that it was the Medal of Honor, and then your travel back and actually your interaction with some prisoners of war during that time. I found that remarkably compelling and profound, and would appreciate if you could share a little bit about that experience with us.
Okay. We had no communication when we were overseas. We had no communication. There was no newspapers or radio programs or anything of that nature to tell us what was going on in the world. Most of us didn't even know anything about the European war. I had two brothers in Europe, but I knew nothing about what they were doing or where they were or the battles they were having or any of that sort of thing. One of them was with Patton's outfit, wounded twice, suffered PTS, what we call today PTS, severely. Didn't live long after he got home. But when I was notified, I was on Guam, and this is in early September of 1945. I was notified that I was going to go see the general. I'm a corporal. I got 2 stripes on my uniform, and I'm going to go see the general. Well, corporals don't go see generals. So I couldn't find out why. I asked my first sergeant why, and he didn't know. But they took me to the general's tent, which was another part that I'd never even seen on Guam. I didn't even know where his tent was. But when I went in his office, he talked to me, but I was so frightened, I couldn't remember anything he said. And he finally handed me an envelope, and if in that talk he mentioned Medal of Honor, I'd never heard tell of it. I didn't know such a thing existed because we had no education about it. You know? I've used a comparison 10 years or 12 years ago. Would you know what a gigabyte is? No, I didn't. Still don't know, but at least I know the word. But I didn't know such a thing existed. The thing that stuck with me when he talked to me was, you get to go home. I'd been over there for 2.5 years. I'm ready to go home. Anything else, and for whatever reason, I get to go home. And so they finally got me back to Hawaii, and of course the war was over by this time. It's about the middle of September, and the war's over. But they're picking up prisoners of war that had been in Japan for 4 or 5 years. And they were bringing those to Hawaii to ship them back to the States, to put them in an Army hospital to restore their health. And they had first priority in all the seats. If there was a vacant seat on an airplane and there was a prisoner of war, he got that seat, even above the general. So they had this big plane out on the tarmac. And I finally walked on the plane. And when I did, stepped inside the airplane, they were celebrating. It was the happiest group of people I believe I've ever seen. But they were so emaciated. Their cheeks were sunken in. You could see their collarbones. Individuals that had weighed 150, 60 pounds now weighed 80 and 90 pounds. But you could not have found a more happy, joyous group of people. They gave me the first seat on the right side, and the reason I got that seat was as they were picking up the prisoners of war to board the plane, on the way from the prison camp to the plane, one of them died, and they didn't have time to get another one to fill that vacancy, so that left a vacant seat, and that's the one I got. When we got into the air and flying to Frisco, one of them was sitting beside me. And I was asking him all kinds of questions because I knew nothing about prisoners of war. I didn't even know we had prisoners of war in Japan at that point. And he was telling me what they did, the kind of work they did, and the treatment that they gave them, and that sort of thing. He told me they got one bowl of soup of a morning. And then they would take them to a coal mine, and the coal mine was about a mile down. They'd give them a bowl of soup at noon. And then in the evening, they would come back out. And if they were unable to get back out of the mine because of weakness, emaciation, malnutrition, that was the end of their life because they were no longer useful. And then they got one bowl of soup when they finally got back to their little hut, little contained place that they kept them in. But one of the things that he said to me during that conversation that I have never forgotten, and it left an impact that's never gone away. His words were, "You will really never know what freedom is until you have lost it." That has stayed with me from that day on, and how true those words are.
Woody, before we take some questions, I'm sure people have questions that they would like to ask. I'd like to ask you one more. I was talking with John, and although you and I didn't speak about this, he told me that there's a story about your best friend in a ring. And appreciate if you could share that story with us.
Well, I was sitting at my cab stand one night. This beautiful young lady walked up to the cab and said, "Can you take me to Meadowdale?" Well, that's where she lived. And I said, "Yeah, get in the back." She got in the back. I don't think we ever said a word. It was only about 5 miles or so between where I was and her home. So I made her pay, too. So a few nights later, she came to the cab again and said basically the same thing. And I said, yeah, why don't you sit up front with me so we can talk? So she did. She sat up front, and we chatted a little bit, and I wiggled a date out of her. So, but her daddy would only let her date on Saturday night because she worked every day. She couldn't date during the week. And the date had to end at 9 o'clock. No later. I got to be going at 9 o'clock. So the next Saturday night, I had my date. Then we began dating regularly, and she knew that I was due to report to the Marine Corps and going to leave. And she said, she came home from work one day, and we were having a date that night, and she gave me a little ring. It had a wee little ruby in the center of the ring. Now, it was just plain old metal. It wasn't, silver or anything like that. It was just a metal ring, but it had a wee little ruby in the middle of it, about the size of a pinhead. But her name was Ruby. And I knew nothing about, and still don't know anything about psychology, but she said, every time you look at that ring, you think of me. It worked. It worked. I behaved myself, because that ring was haunting me when I would think I'm going to go get me a date or something. I don't know. So she would have married, but I didn't want to, because I wasn't sure I'd ever get back home again. And I just said, no, let's just be engaged. Okay. So I wore that ring, turned my finger green. I'd have to clean my finger every once in a while because it gets green. And when I got overseas, we were on Guam, and one of the fellows in my squad became my assistant flamethrower operator. He was a guy that was 6'6", 13 shoe, big guy. And I'm the operator, but he's my assistant, so if something happens to me, he's got to take over the job of the flamethrower. We're sitting in the tent one night or one day, and probably talking about home and loneliness and that sort of thing. And his daddy, before he left for the Marine Corps, had given him a ring. And it was a big ring. I mean, big square. And he had to wear it on this finger, because these fingers, the middle fingers, were growing together. That was something in the family. Dads did too, and his brothers, but he had to wear the ring on here. Oh, back in my day, men did not wear any rings on their fingers at all, except the marriage or any ring, That was just custom. And we're sitting there talking about home, I suppose, and one or the other of us said to the other one, if anything happens to me, I want you to get my ring back to Ruby. He said, I want you to get my ring back to Dad. And we shook hands. That became a bond. Forgot it. It was a commitment, but we forgot it. On March 6th, on Iwo Jima, he sacrificed his life. He got hit with a mortar and instantaneous. I ran to him to check to see if he was still living and had a pulse, but he didn't. But he was stretched out on the ground, and here's this ring on his finger. And that bond, that promise came back. We had been told many, many times in our training, you never take anything off of a dead Marine's body, period. But that agreement came back. I tried to pull the ring off, couldn't get it. I spit on it. I got the ring off. But we'd been over there for over 2 years, and that sunshine had never hit that spot under that big ring, and it was just as bright as a light. I knew somebody is going to know something was on there. So I grabbed some sand and rubbed on it, and that didn't do any good, so I spit in my hand, made me some mud, and put that on it. It didn't cover it, but it dulled the brightness of it, and I stuck the ring in my pocket and went on. When I got back to Guam, I wrote to the folks and told them that I had that ring and that I would bring it to them when I got home, that I didn't want to mail it for fear somebody would get it. So I carried it the rest of the time, and when I got home, I wrote them a letter and told them, I'm home, and I will get the ring to you. I don't know when or how, but I will get the ring. They lived in a little community called Floyd, Montana, right up next to the Canadian border. Not about as far away as you can get, I had just married on October the 17th, didn't have any money, my wife and I had no idea how we were going to get there, but we're going to get there somehow. And finally, a friend who kind of took me over when I first got home had a 1942 red Dodge convertible with a leaky roof. And he had carried me in my parade when I got home. We used that vehicle for the parade. And I told him about this. And I said, how am I going to get there? He said, why don't you take my 1942 Dodge? Okay. Well, the tires were bald because he couldn't get tires during the war. He wasn't in the war effort. The spare tire didn't have a tread on it. It was just smooth as this floor. But my wife and I got in that car, and we started for Floyd, Montana. Didn't know where we were going or how we were going to get there. She only had 2 flats on the way. But you fixed your own flats back in those days. But we delivered that ring to his dad. I'll never forget that day. His body was still on Iwo Jima at that time because the cemeteries still existed. As far as everybody knew, those cemeteries were going to remain there. And we had 3 of them. One for the 3rd Marines, 4th Marines, and 5th Marines. But eventually, the Iwo was given back to the Japanese, and we had to move them. And the folks had a choice. You could have your loved one shipped home or sent to Hawaii and put in the cemetery there, and that's where Vernon is today. But that father getting that ring prior to the time that they moved the body to Hawaii was probably one of the most precious things that he could have received because it represented his son.
Thank you, Woody. I don't know, Chad, do you have anything before we take some questions? Was there any? Oh, okay. Well, then that's even better. So do you have a mic that's working, or do we need to pass this down?
Here, perhaps. Hello. Oh, there we are. So one of the things, of course, growing up with a grandfather like Woody is a blessing that I can't really describe, but something that he displayed and continues to display in terms of leadership of our family is leading by example. And something that one of our audience members, we had folks submit some questions. And one thing that has greatly impacted not only my life, but all those who get to know Woody and get to be led by his example. And the question was, Woody, what piece of advice would you give our youth to ensure that they would have success in their endeavors? And I thought of what you told Cedar the other day. And if you could share that piece of advice that I think is so impactful, not only for our youth, but for everyone.
Great-grandson.
I don't think you're.
Oh, okay. A great-grandson finally decided he was going to join the Marine Corps. Maybe I had a little influence on that, I don't know. I twisted his arm a little bit, But he asked me what advice I would give him when he got into the Marine Corps. And I said, do the very best that you can, and then do a little bit more. Well, apparently he accepted that because in his group of 62 recruits at Parris Island, he was one of 5 who got a meritorious promotion as a result of what he did to live up to those words. He had a rifle crawling through a barbed wire type thing, and one of the other fellows wasn't going to make it. Well, he took him and pulled him along with him to make sure that he got through that obstacle course. So he graduated last Friday at Parris Island and now is a Marine.
So using that same kind of leadership and that same kind of thought that we should all do our best and do just a little bit more, there's a responsibility for all of us to carry on the legacy of those who pay that ultimate sacrifice. And the next question pertains to that. I get to call him Woody when we're sitting up here, and I'm far enough away from him, he can't even hit me. Typically, I have to call him Papaw. But Woody, could you tell us why it is so important for our country and for our youth and for all of us as citizens, why is it so important that we honor Gold Star families?
Well, we've had a lot of wars, far too many. But for whatever reason, the person that we really recognized and paid tribute to and honor was Gold Star Mother, which was actually started in World War I. And then it was practiced in World War I. Then we dropped it after World War I, picked it up again in World War II. And a lady in California, a mother, started the program. And she developed first a blue star in a 5x7 little flag that said, this house, this home, has somebody serving in the military. But the loss, when they lost somebody, they developed, or she developed, a gold star on the same size flag, but the gold star was replaced to blue. So that home would then indicate that a loved one was not coming home. And we picked it up again in World War II, and we did that. My mother had 3 blue stars hanging in her front window because 3 of us were on active duty at the same time. I have a friend with me, Kim Wolf. They had 6 brothers and 6 relations. And so there were blue stars all over their place of indicating people serving on active duty. Then for whatever reason, we kind of quit doing that. I don't know why we did, but it still should be something that we ought to do, because though if those didn't serve, if nobody served in the military, what would we do? And for years, we didn't recognize any Gold Star family members other than Mother. And finally, a Gold Star dad who lost his son in Afghanistan. He gave me his story to say that he was the only son of his family. His mother and father only had 1 boy, and he was it. And his mother and father were already deceased, that he and his wife had 1 boy. And the boy had already enlisted into the Army, had his reporting date to go to Fort Leonard Wood for his basic when the mother died of cancer. So now Dad is alone. The boy went from the States to Afghanistan and there sacrificed his life. So Dad was home alone when the 2 Army military people came to tell him that his son had been killed. He had nobody to grieve with. He had nobody to talk to. He didn't know there were any other Gold Star family members in the community because there was no organization of any kind. They didn't know each other. And that convinced me we needed something to recognize the families, the total family or relations to that individual. And that's how this whole thing came about, that we did the first Gold Star Family Memorial Monument in our little state of West Virginia to recognize the 11,774 names that we've got on our memorial on our Capitol grounds that had never been mentioned, no program had ever been talked about or anything for all of those families. And we did the first one to give a symbol, a recognition of the loss of those individuals. And from there it began to gather momentum. So today, communities all over America, people just like you that love America, love our freedom, appreciate those who are serving to protect us. They have now erected and we've dedicated 86 of these throughout the country. 74 more are in the process somewhere in some state. There will be one right here in this community so that the Gold Star families of this community will have a certain place, a central place that they can go knowing that this represents my loved one who will never be forgotten.
So, Woody, if you could give this crowd one challenge based on our last question. We had one of our audience members ask, what is the most important thing that we can do to help other folks around us appreciate our freedom?
That's a tough one, it really is. But you know, we can't survive without serving each other. We are served so many ways. Every day of our life, somebody does something for us that we could not do ourselves. And that's America. That's the way it ought to be. And if we get together in order to have some symbol of those that serve and those who have sacrificed, it builds us. It gives us a purpose, but it also builds America. Our country right now, I can't remember, I've been around this world a long time, but I can't remember the turmoil that we have today that's ever existed before. And somehow we have got to come back together and be truly a United States of America. And when these Gold Star families come to one of these memorials and they learn for the first time somebody else suffered just like they did, grieved just like they did, there is a togetherness that takes place that couldn't happen any other way. So if you can get involved in any way to assist those families so they know that their loved one is not going to be forgotten, please do so. Not for self, but for them.
Woody, I just want to thank you for being with us. I know we've talked about some things that are difficult to talk about and such serious issues and important things for all of us to think about. I do want to end on a little bit of a lighter note, and for all of the University of Memphis students here, not the recommended way to become Catholic. And definitely not how you get a license saying you're 21. So Woody, I'm so grateful for what you have done in the service to our country and to this critical service to this country at this moment in our history. And I'm grateful for you being a part and becoming a part of this community in Memphis. sharing your remarkable wisdom with us about things that we should never forget, but we should think about every single day. And I'm just grateful that you've been here and shared this with us. I'm going to remind everyone that we're going to have I believe, some time downstairs, correct, with a. Oh, okay. So, John, you going to do some recognition? Okay.
Thank you, President Rudd. That's hard to follow. That's really hard to follow. On the slideshow here, you can see there's a few people that I'd like to thank. And so David North with Sedgwick has been kind enough to provide transportation for Woody back and forth from West Virginia, and it was a critical part of this coming together. Stephanie Beasley is President Rudd's assistant. She's phenomenal. Tammy Hedges, Lauren Shelby, Pam Cash, Elizabeth. These are the people behind the scenes. This was not a huge effort of a lot of people, but a few people that worked really hard. Jeff and Hope Presley, Clay Presley, Laura Presley, Trey Heath. This is the Southworth family of companies. They do not like to be recognized. However, they should be. There's 200 ladies enjoying their convention because of this family. Elizabeth Morris family, Michael Morola's here. He's a Marine. They donated their house for Woody, and I can tell you this: our neighborhood gave him a reception, and it was quite amazing. So I thank Betty for that. Mr. William Alston is the one that donated all the signs around the city that you've been seeing. He's a class. I haven't talked to him in 30 years. Class roommate in high school. I knew he had a sign company and called him up, and presto. Where's William Burns? William's in the back running the show. William's been the executive producer of this. When I say that, I mean he's done everything. He's an unbelievable young man. He's part of my company, and I thank you, William. My son Alexander's here somewhere. He's been running around the city. It's in the back, Xander. And then I want to thank a few other folks, and then we're going to move through the program, make the official announcement, and we'll be out of here. Cameron Kinley, where's Cameron? Oh, he had to leave early. Cameron he's a Memphian. He just graduated from the Naval Academy as class president. He's also the individual that was signed by the Tampa Bay Bucks. And we do actually have some very important Navy people here, but in terms of a spokesperson for the Navy, I'm going to tell you right now, there's 200 mothers that are going to be saying prayers for Cameron, and probably about 500 people when this is over with, so no pressure. And what an incredible young man. He's been with me for the last 2 days, and he spoke this morning to the ladies, and it was quite special. I'm going off script here. I'm sorry, President. Mr. Jim Brown, would you please stand? He represents the Marine Corps League here. He's an actual war hero. He heard Woody speak when he was in high school before he joined the Marines, and he joined for the uniform as well, right, sir? Yeah. So we want to thank the Singleton Marine Corps League. He's actually the only Shelby County Medal of Honor recipient that passed away in Vietnam. We're going to be working with you guys to make sure the entire military community is happy with this monument. Yep. If you can't hear him, actually, I'll come down here with the mic. He's speaking of Veterans Park at Overton Park that most people are not aware of.
In Veterans Park, first thing I think was built there was the Doughboy statue. Does anyone know how it was built? The students in Memphis City School collected pennies, and it was melted down to the statue. There's also, right at the end of it, is the Corey Moore Memorial, which the Marine Corps League was primarily responsible, and you came down than for that. And it didn't cost the public anything. All the money was over $100,000 was raised. That has more history in it. It covers the 5 different areas of the war. And so I would ask you to get that. One thing I would like to say about the Gold Family Monument, that is for every American citizen, because every American, our freedom is not free, as Woody said. Our freedom has been paid for by the blood, sweat, and tears of every American citizen. And anyone who can't, relate to that, maybe they should look around for a used casket. But I challenge y'all to be American citizens and support it.
That's awesome. I think and that's coming from a man that has 3 Purple Hearts. Okay, so he's an amazing person. A quick backstory on how this came about. About 4 years ago, my wife Sandy and I, my Aunt Regina from Dallas, was invited by my Aunt Tina Santee, also a U of M grad, to go to the World War II Museum where she would be speaking alongside Woody. And I got to spend close to 2 days back and forth with meeting Woody and Chad. And it's just, he's an amazing person. He's really funny. And so Chad and I have been working on ways to raise a lot of money for military families. And then he just reached out to me a few weeks ago, mentioned to me the Gold Star Mothers Convention. I picked up the phone, called Jeff, and then we started the ball rolling. And I want to lead into my final thank you, because we've had a president here at the university that is unbelievable. Dr. David Rudd. We use the term leader way too often too, Mike, besides hero. If you're looking for a definition of a leader, it's the ability to inspire and the capacity to serve. Okay? When you're around Woody or Dr. Rudd or other leaders, there's just an aura that happens and you want to do things. And so at this time, Chad, I think you and Woody would like to make a special presentation to Dr. Rudd. And so if you want to stand, David.
So in our organization, like we said, we rely on folks like President Rudd to lead from the front. And he indeed continues to do that, not only with the University of Memphis, bringing all of you together, bringing all of us together, but all throughout not only the community, but our wonderful country. And so with that, we would like to invite you to be an honorary board member of the Woody Williams Foundation.
One of the many great pleasures that I get out of life is to be able to put this medallion around the neck of somebody like Dr. Rudd, who does so much not only for students and people in this university, but all over town. So it is my pleasure and distinct pleasure to put this around your neck as an honorary board member of the Woody Williams Foundation. Thank you.
Well, Woody, let me just say what a remarkable honor to not just to be able to share some time with you, but thank you. And let me say one thing. I may be the guy holding the mic, but we've got tremendous people here. The reason that things come off, and John, the reason that things get done at this university are because of people that you don't see. And one of them's leaning against the wall over there, Pam Cash, who I just horrified by saying that. And Pam does remarkable work here and helps us do good things in this community that I am so grateful for. And so there are dozens of people like Pam at this university that were connected to this event today that made this happen. And John, the other thing I would say is what makes Memphis special are the people. in Memphis. And we have got a wonderful mayor who is sitting right down there on the front row. And I'm telling you, that's what makes this city great. So I'm enormously thankful for all of you, and just grateful to be a Memphian. Thank you.
We're going to do the piece of cake. You stay right here. I'm going to go down and get Kane.
So today we started out with looking at a video and really thinking about from first person from Cindy Tatum, the Gold Star mother of Corporal Daniel Lee Tatum, United States Marine Corps, what a Gold Star family looks like. And our motto at the Woody Williams Foundation is the cause is greater than I. And when people ask us what that cause is, you're seeing the cause. It's Gold Star families and their loved ones. And it is my distinct honor to ask Mr. John Santee to escort Pam Fleming, Gold Star mother of Sergeant James M. Fleming, United States Army, and Kay Krieger, Gold Star mother of Lance Corporal Timothy Krieger, United States Marine Corps, to the stage. If we could welcome them and show them honor, please. Gold Star families that are in this room and Gold Star families all across this country, you are our compass and you are our rudder. And it is with that that we are more than honored to announce officially that Memphis will be home to a Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. One more time, folks, to show our appreciation to our Gold Star family members. I'd like to invite Mayor Strickland for a few comments. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. I am so thankful that I live in the greatest country in the world. I think that deserves some applause. But it is the greatest because we have stood on the shoulders of some giants, and Woody is one of those giants. So many people have served and sacrificed so that we can be free. They made it possible that we live in the land of the free. They have made it possible that we continue to become a more perfect union. We cannot forget those who served and sacrificed for us, especially those who gave their lives and the families they left. Thank you, Woody, for bringing this to us so that we never forget. And whether it's in Overton Park or Liberty Park or wherever we all work it out, we're going to have that monument here. Thank you. And this pales in comparison to any honor you've gotten, but it's the highest one I can give you, and that's a key to our city.
And another member of our community, I'd like to invite Steve Earhart from the AutoZone Liberty Bowl for a very special announcement.
Thanks very much, and thanks to everybody that's here. Thank you, Dr. Rudd, for hosting, Mr. Mayor and John, everybody that's put this wonderful event together. And we've been so inspired by you, Woody, that on behalf of the 500 members of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl Festival Association, I'd like to make this announcement today. And many of you in the audience may know that the founder of the Liberty Bowl, the football game and all the activities that we do, Bud Dudley, who was a great student athlete at Notre Dame in the 40s, he went off to World War II. He flew bombers over Europe, and he flew more missions than anybody else, but most of his bombardiers, his pilots and navigators didn't come back. So he vowed, he was much like you, he vowed to found an institution that would carry on the symbols of freedom and liberty, all the things that you have talked about here today, patriotism, hence the name, the Liberty Bowl. In fact, that was the origin of the naming of the Liberty Bowl Stadium and Liberty Park now. And so our association carries on events throughout the year, and we always try and involve those principles of liberty, freedom, patriotism. In fact, a few years ago, we reenacted the raising of the flag of Iwo Jima. So we're so honored to be able to announce today that Woody has agreed, and he'll be returning to Memphis on December 28th for the 63rd edition of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl football game. He'll be honored. He'll be Grand Marshal of the parade down Beale Street, Mayor, when we have the thousands of people there. He's going to flip the commemorative coin. He's done that some other big places. He's done that at the Super Bowl, so he's a pro at doing that. And in addition to honoring you, Woody, and the foundation, and help develop this effort, as the mayor talked about with the monument, you know, we're going to invite and have as our complimentary guests every American, I get choked up when I say it, but every one of the moms in the Gold Star families and their entire families to be our guests at the AutoZone Liberty Bowl on December 28th. So, Rudy, thank you for the inspiration. Thanks to everybody here. We hope to be able to continue this on December 28th. That's only 6 months away. So thank you again, and thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite Second Lieutenant Adriana Darnell, United States Air Force class of 2021, who was recently commissioned to the United States Space Force and an alum of the University of Memphis, to come and offer some closing remarks and a send-off for our program.
Hello, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed the evening as much as I have. As he stated, I'm Adriana Darnell. I'm a recent graduate here from the University of Memphis in the Air Force ROTC program, and being the first cadet to commission as a second lieutenant into the United States Space Force. So. Thank you all. It's an honor to be here and to stand before Mr. Woody Williams. Just thank you so much, sir, for your dedication and sacrifice. When I first met Mr. Woody Williams, I thought to myself, I was like, wow, this 97-year-old man has more energy than my 22-year-old self. But, sir, I just want to thank you and the Woody Williams Foundation for everything that you all have done and are doing. Thank you, sir. Also, to the people, I want you to ask yourselves, are you doing your best and a little bit more? To just leave on that note, please join Mr. Woody Williams and myself downstairs for a few light refreshments. Thank you. You have a great evening.
Thank you.